everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make some holiday sugar cookies. This demonstration will be in two parts. First I'm going to show you how to make the cookies, and then I will show you how to make the frosting. Alright, so for the cookie dough, you will need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1 room temperature egg, and 1 cup of softened butter, which is equal to 2 sticks of butter. The kitchen equipment that you will need is some cling wrap or saran wrap, some parchment paper. You will also want a hand mixer, a baking sheet, and I also have some cookie cutters. If you don't have cookie cutters, that's okay. You can just use a cup and you can cut out circles with a cup. You'll also want some measuring cups and measuring spoons to measure out your ingredients. You'll also want 2 bowls, okay? 1 for your dry ingredients and 1 for your wet. You will also want a wooden spoon, a rolling pin, and then you want a fine mesh strainer to sift your flour, or a flour sifter. If you don't have either of those, that's okay. You can use a wire whisk to whisk your flour and get out any lumps and incorporate some air into the mixture. So first I'm going to get my mixing bowl for my wet ingredients, and I'm going to add my softened butter and my cup of sugar, and I'm going to cream those together. Alright, and I'm going to cream them at a speed 2 on my mixer. Okay, next I'm going to add my vanilla and my egg. Another great kitchen tool when you are baking is a nice spatula. So I'm going to scrape down the sides of my bowl because I want to make sure everything gets mixed evenly. Okay, so next I'm going to add my vanilla and my egg. And when you're adding egg to a mixture, it's good practice to crack it on the tabletop and then crack your egg over a separate container. That way, if there's any eggshell, you can pick those out before you add it to the mixture. So I'm going to add my egg and my 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, next I'm going to sift my flour and my dry ingredients. So I have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to add my teaspoon of baking powder as well as my teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to sift those through my strainer. And remember, if you don't have a sifter, it's okay. You can just use your wire whisk, and you can briskly whisk together your dry ingredients. And that will help get out any lumps and help incorporate some air into your dry mixture and make it nice and fluffy. Okay, so next I'm going to slowly add my dry ingredients to my wet. And I'm going to mix them with my wooden spoon. So I do it about 1/3 at a time. last bit, I'm going to mix it with my hands. And I'm going to form it into a nice ball. Okay, next I have 2 sheets of parchment paper, and I'm going to pull out my cookie dough, put it on one of the sheets, and then I'm going to kind of flatten it out and form it into a rectangle. And then I'm going to put the other sheet of parchment paper on top. And I'm going to get my rolling pin, and I'm going to start rolling my dough out. And you want to start from the center of your dough and roll out. And you want to roll it out so that it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Okay, so now that I have it all rolled out to about 1/4 inch thickness, I'm going to put it on my baking sheet. And then I'm going to wrap this with saran wrap and refrigerate it for at least an hour. Okay, after an hour, then you're going to remove your cookies from the refrigerator. I'm going to move this off of my sheet pan. Pull off. And then I'm going to cut the cookies from the center. So my cookie dough kind of hung over the edges of the cookie sheet, and so these sides I'm going to let it thaw out a little bit, because if I push down, then they're going to crack. This side over here I push down and it's got a crack in it. But that's okay, because after we cut out our cookies, we can form our dough back together and then roll it back out and cut more cookies, so we're not wasting any of it. All right, so now I'm going to cut my cookies. And we have some fun shapes here. And as I said before, it's okay if you don't have cookie cutters. You can just use a cup and you can just make circle cookies. Before I lay them on my pan, I'm going to lay some parchment paper down. So I do not want my cookies to stick. Okay, now that I've cut out all my shapes, I have my oven preheated to 325, and I'm going to bake these for about 10 minutes. You know they're finished baking when they stop looking wet in the oven. Okay, now with my remaining dough, I can kind of push it back together in the center of my parchment paper. And once it starts getting back to room temperature, you can reform it and roll it out with another piece of parchment paper on top, and then we can cut out some more cookies. Just keep filming and then you can keep her.
Are you gonna
cut out
explain
whatever.
what you're doing?
Well, I already talked about how I was gonna roll it out and cut more cookies. So after about 10 to 12 minutes, I'm going to pull my cookies out of the oven, and they no longer look wet, and they're just starting to brown on the edges. And then I'm going to let these cool on the sheet pan for a couple minutes, and then I will transfer them over to my cooling racks. So now that my cookies are cooling on the rack, as soon as they are completely cool, they are ready to decorate. So next, I'm going to show you how to make some buttercream frosting, and we will decorate our cookies. Thank you for watching, everybody.